Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 190. Oh, hey. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast, my friends. If you are brand new here, hello, nice to meet you. Welcome. My name is Tess. I am the host of this show, founder of Wander Wealthy, the Wealthy Coach Blueprint as well, which we will talk about in a little bit, and business coach for all of the amazing money coaches of the world. So if you are new, if you have stumbled into this vortex that we've created here, then welcome. You are in the right place, especially if you are a new, aspiring, or current money coach, or financial coach, or wealth coach, whatever you want to call yourself. This week, we have another solo show, and you guys, can you believe we are on episode 190? I can't believe that. We have 10 episodes left until we get to 200, and it is just such an exciting time. I might have to do something very exciting for the 200th episode of this podcast. It has been through so many ups and downs and twists and turns, and I could not even imagine that we would end up here helping money coaches do what we were doing 100 episodes ago and just having a great time, having the time of our lives. So this week's episode, we're going to do kind of a quick hitter. I'm going to share with you the 3 C's of online marketing for money coaches. So this is really exciting because this is really the bread and butter. Is it the bread and butter? Maybe it's the frosting on top, but it's a really important part of the cake when it comes to building your online coaching business. And it's sort of the outline of some key components that I dig into inside of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. So here today, you're going to get the simplified version, and honestly, it is this simple. So we're going to dive into that. But speaking of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, let me share with you what that is, especially if you're new here and you're like, I've heard this a couple times now, because the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is a sponsor of this week's episode. So the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is my program. It is a 12-week business building program for money coaches, financial coaches, wealth coaches, whether you are aspiring, you're just thinking about getting into the coaching industry and helping people with their money, or maybe you're brand new, or you've been building your money coaching business and you're wondering how to truly scale this, how to make it a sustainable and a really strong foundational business for yourself. So the Wealthy Coach Blueprint takes you through an 8-phase core curriculum where we go in hard on finding your ideal clients and building a program that they will love and they will truly be delighted and they're willing to pay for as well. Helping you learn how to market that business, which is something I'm going to give you a little teaser on here in this week's episode. And of course, how to sell, close, and delight your clients so that you have raving fans that turn into raving clientele that then create more raving fans for you because they speak so highly about you and the work that you've done together. They're sending all their friends and families and aunties and uncles your way. So if you want to learn more about the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, you can head to wanderwealthy.com/apply. Now, enrollment is not yet open for the Blueprint, but you can hop on the waitlist. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that webpage, hit the Get on the Waitlist button, and you can just sign up. It's a quick name and email address, and that will let me know that you want to be one of the first to know when enrollment does open, which we are going to be doing in just about a month here. So we're really excited for the next round. We've already had so many amazing clients and coaches go through the Wealthy Coach Blueprint and have amazing results. We've achieved revenues over $30,000 in total from those who have gone through the Blueprint and graduated so far. And there's so much more where that came from in the round that is currently happening. So I'm so excited for them. I'm excited for you, especially if money coaching is the route that you want to go down. And if you need to talk to someone about it, please, by all means, reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Tess_Wicks. I love to message with anybody who's interested in financial coaching and that business. And let's chat about it. Otherwise, head to wanderwealthy.com/apply. Get yourself on the wait list and learn a little bit more about the blueprint before enrollment opens near the end of November, early December. All right, let's dive into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode, which is the 3 C's of online marketing for your money coaching business. So like I said, this is something that I dig deep into in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. I really go in and kind of help you craft your marketing plan and strategy, and ultimately what you need to be doing and how you need to be thinking about how to get your program, how to get your offer out there on the interwebs and get it in front of the right people. Okay. And so when we think about the 3 C's, that's like the simplified roadmap that I want my clients to kind of keep in the back of their head. As long as you're hitting these 3 C's, you are doing the right thing. You are on the right track, and clients will come into you. And client is not one of the C's, but you get a C if you do the 3 C's. You get the big C, the big clients. Clients will come into you, cash will come into you. So, okay, 3 C's equals 2 C's, clients and cash. I'm sorry, am I being weird with this? I'm just realizing that everything starts with C. So if you do these 3 C's, you will get the clients, you will get the cash, and you'll be able to make a huge impact and see why, the proof about why you do this work, why you're so passionate about helping people with their money. Okay, so let's dive into these 3 C's of marketing. And the very first C is, drum roll please. I don't have any drum roll sound effects. Maybe my editor will put it in. The first C is content. Is that a surprise? Probably not. But let me tell you something about content. Content is amazing. Content is great. There are many different forms of content that you can do online. And so what I tell my clients is to pick one platform to create content on and just start there. The easiest way to do that is picking a social media platform, because you can create really great bite-sized content on social media and you can knowingly get it right in front of your clients instead of having some sort of link or some sort of like threshold for them to have to go through or go over in order to get your content. So let me break this down. On social media, you can use Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. YouTube is kind of an interesting content platform that is social media because there is that kind of like client engagement, but YouTube really relies on search rather than the being able to get in front of your ideal client. So YouTube, I'm going to kind of set aside for now. When I'm thinking about social media, I'm thinking about Facebook, LinkedIn. I didn't mention LinkedIn earlier, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. Okay. I would say those are probably the most popular and probably the most likely to fall into kind of how I'm thinking about this type of content. Social media content is great because it is meant to be concise, it is meant to be shareable, and it is meant to be able to, just pop into your ideal client's life and teach them something or tell a story in as brief of a way as you can and ask your client to take an action. Okay. And social media is such a great tool because there's no barrier to entry there. Like you can just create an account and then you can, optimize your account and make sure you're creating great content straight on the platform. Now, the other types of content are things like YouTube, as I had mentioned, where you have to put in a lot more effort and it is video content, obviously. I think all of us are familiar with YouTube, but if we're not, a core type of content is video style content. And then the platform that you can use is YouTube. Now, there's other platforms you can use as well, but I would say the most popular is going to be YouTube. Another way that you can create content is through written content. And the most popular platform for written content, if we're not talking about the social media platforms, is your very own blog. And your blog would sit on a website. Maybe you would have a website through WordPress that you develop and create yourself. Maybe you get one through Squarespace or Wix, or I think there's other website platforms out there, but you have to have a website in order to have a blog. I think that's the only way it works. Of course, you can do micro blog style posts, but those would live on a social media platform like Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram for the most part. But written content that kind of lives on its own, that's on your own domain, is going to be blog content. And then, of course, there is audio content. And audio content is obviously the primary way is going to be through a podcast like this one that you're listening to. And those are all, I would also say, typically longer form content. You can do really short videos on YouTube, just like you can do longer videos, but you can also do short videos on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on maybe even Twitter. And you can also do written content on those platforms as well. You could do audio in a roundabout way. But when you think about YouTube, when you think about a blog, when you think about podcast, it's harder to get it directly in front of your ideal client because there's no real way to be able to do that unless they're either using a search engine to find it or you put it onto a social media profile and get it into your ideal client's atmosphere. So you can see there's a barrier for them to get to your content platform versus using the micro style content that you can put up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to explain that because what I have my clients do is start as simple as possible. So you're not trying to be in all those places at once. And you've probably heard me talk a lot about how I don't think you need a blog, or I don't even think you need a website. I don't think you need a podcast or a YouTube channel in order to start bringing on clients. But if you want to build out a marketing strategy, you do have to have some form of content, because that way your clients can start to get to know you. They can start to build that likingness and that trust factor. And that's really important for them to ultimately turn into actual clients. For now, if I'm saying clients, I'm really meaning like ideal clients, because they're probably not paying you yet. They need a way to understand who you are, what you're about, why they should trust you, if you are knowledgeable in this field that you're working in, and to also just get to know what you're offering them. And the easiest way to do that is to create a sanctuary on one of the many social media platforms, and pick the one. Don't try to be on all of them. Pick the one where the majority of your ideal clients are hanging out and spending time. That way, you can put all your focus, energy, and effort into that one platform. Okay. And you can create really great, really hard-hitting, really highly resonating content on all these various platforms. And by you getting to know your ideal client profiles, that's what I like to call them, or you can, I guess some people say ideal client avatar. If you get to know who your ideal client is on a deeper level, you'll also know where they're hanging out, what platform, and what type of content they really like to consume. And that way you can just have this like very concrete, very straight to the point, highly resonating type of content that you're creating for them. Okay, so the first C is content. And of course, we could go down the rabbit hole of how to create this highly resonating content. But let me just say, if you get to know your ideal client better than they know themselves, it'll become so much easier to create really amazing content for them. And as long as you're creating that content on the one platform that they're a majority of the time hanging out on, or a majority of that population is hanging out on, you're so much more likely to get that content in front of them. Now, the second question is, how do you get that content in front of them? And that's where the second C comes into play. The second C is, drum roll. The second C is conversations. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people hear conversations and they get a little like icky feeling inside, because we've all been on the receiving end of a conversation that felt icky. We've been on the receiving end of unwarranted, unsolicited people sliding into our DMs and trying to sell us something. And of course, those don't feel good, because you weren't looking for it. You weren't interested in it. And it felt like someone was trying to push something on you that you weren't even, ready for. Plus, you probably don't know this person. And so that's why the conversations that you can have with your ideal clients are simple. They should be simple, and they should be honest and just approachable in the sense where how do you meet people? How do you walk up to people in a bar or at even a networking event and get to know them? You don't get started by walking up to them and saying, hey, I have an awesome freebie that will help you organize and automate all of your finances in 5 easy steps. You would never do that. So I know you're probably on the receiving end of some of those kind of style of conversations. Those aren't the conversations that we're having, okay? But you have to become willing to have conversations, because this is how you get in front of your ideal client, right? This is how you meet people in real life, right? And how they become aware of you is by going up to them and introducing yourself. Or, saying, oh my gosh, I love your shirt, or I love your whatever you have there. That looks really interesting. What is that? Can you explain that to me? Right? We don't go up and make weird pitch conversations. We go up and we are human to human, genuinely interested in getting to know other people. And that's what you have to do with your ideal client, right? Anybody who ends up being an ideal client in your space, why wouldn't we want to genuinely get to know them? And I know this is weird to say, hey, just be a human, but sometimes we need that reminder because we forget about how to be a human when business gets in the way, when money gets in the way, when just buy my program gets in the way. So instead, just remind yourself that you are a human and they are a human, and the only way for them to know about your humanness is to introduce yourself, or is to go up and give them some love on whatever they're sharing in their life. Or in some cases, especially with your clientele, if you're working with a certain specific type of niche who wouldn't have a public profile, sometimes it's just to request to follow them or send them a friend request, right? That's how they start to become aware of you. You have to knock on the door before you can barge into the home and put your freebie on the table. Which you shouldn't do that, by the way. Just don't do that anyway. But you have to knock on the door, okay? You have to tap on the shoulder and get them to turn around. So how can you do that in a real relationship building way? Of course, it's through having conversations, but it's having the right conversations at the right time. And so in order to get your content in front of them, you have to get in front of them. You have to go out and find your ideal client, send them a friend request, start following them, engage with their stuff, send them a message, genuinely want to build a relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, if these people are going to pay you, you got to like them as much as they like you, right? If you want to have a really great coaching business, it has to be a two-way street, okay? It's not fun to coach people you don't like. I don't have experience doing that, but I just can imagine it would not work. So make sure that you like them, and then they can build that know, like, and trust factor with you. And they're going to do that not only through having conversations, right? You could go and send them a friend request, and then all of a sudden they're like, who is this person? Sure, I'll be friends with them, but I also want to look at their stuff. And they start looking at your profile, and then they start looking and reading through that amazing content that you created. And that's how the snowball effect occurs. And then they send you a DM and they're like, oh my gosh, you just randomly friend requested me, but I'm obsessed with what you're talking about. I really think you could help me. How do we work together? And some client relationships, or I should be accurate with how I'm saying this, some potential client relationships will evolve that quickly. It could be the very next day that they start asking you how they can start working with you. And some others will take time. And that's where the third C comes in. This third C is, final drum roll, consistency. So consistency with a side of patience. But I think patience and consistency go hand in hand. If you think about being consistent, you're probably doing that because you have a lot of patience, and you're probably being patient in order to be consistent. I don't know, but somehow they seem like they go hand in hand. But really, like I had said, some clients will take a day, some clients will take years to really eventually actually become your clients. And that doesn't mean that you stop creating content or you stop having conversations. That means you just continue to be consistent. And that's super important as a coach, right? As someone who is creating this valuable content that is either telling a story, connecting with your ideal clients' pain points or their fears, or helping them understand how they can reach their goals by providing education, by telling them a little bit about your program and how they can work with you. That's what your content really needs to entail. And of course, in order to get your content in front of them, we have to have conversations, and also just have conversations as they continue to take in all of your content because it's so amazing and they're going to want to talk to you about it. But we have to be consistent too, right? We're trying to develop this sanctuary for our ideal clients to really go to and absorb this information and feel supported and feel like there is a solution out there for them. And maybe they're not ready today, but they're coming around. But if you stop altogether, if you just completely fall off the face of the earth and stop creating content or stop having conversations, they're going to maybe think that, oh, actually, he or she isn't a coach anymore, or it's going to not be their top of mind anymore because there aren't posts kind of popping up into their feeds, or you're not having that conversation and continuing with it, right? And so truly being a great marketer in the online space and in building your coaching business, you need to be patient, but still create with consistency. And I'm not going to lie, this is the hardest part about building a business, because you have to be ruthless and you have to have this deep belief, and this is faith, you guys, faith in knowing something is going to come of it, even though you can't see it quite yet. And you just have to continue to show up and do it. And the second you want to give up, if you decide not to, that's when you start to see those things come to fruition. Truly, because I can tell you, I've given up on a lot of things when, before I finally hit my stride, I gave up on a lot of things. And now when I look at it, I'm like, oh, if I would have just kept going, I would have struck gold. Right? There's a, I don't know if it's a parable or what it is, but there's a story about, maybe it's actually a real story about someone who was digging for gold somewhere. I'm totally botching this, but they were really determined to find like a gold mine, and they were digging and digging and digging for forever. And finally they just kind of gave up. And then someone else came along and bought up the land that they had bought, and for like pennies on the dollar. And they started digging, and they were 3 feet away from striking gold. If that person that sold the land hadn't given up, they would have struck gold because they were 3 feet from gold, but they decided to give up 3 feet away. But you never know until you just keep going. And that is the hardest part about entrepreneurship. And I can say that because I know, and I've been there. And if you're there, if you're like the 3 feet from gold and you're about to give up, know that it truly takes that consistency and that patience and the faith that it's going to come. So continue to create that content and have those good conversations, and do that with consistency. Now, let me just, before we close out, I want to say something about consistency, okay? Because this does not mean that you have to be creating every single day. This does not mean that you have to burn yourself out with this, right? You can set the boundaries in your business and in your life about how much you do create and how much you have those conversations, or what, even what times of day you go in to have conversations and then you shut off, right? I think that's super important, especially if you're using a social platform for your content platform and for your conversational platform, which most likely you will be. All my Blueprint students use a social platform to do this. And it's super important because social media and the internet in general can kind of have this effect where they take over your life. It is super important to have those boundaries in place. And so remember to have boundaries when you are kind of deciding what is going to be your consistent agenda. Are you going to post weekly? Are you going to post 3 times a week? If you are going to post daily, just making sure that you are truly understanding what that's going to take, and if that's the pattern and the rhythm that you want to be on. Because consistency really comes in where it's like, okay, if you're going to post daily, then you got to post daily. If you're going to post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then the best place to start, especially when you're just starting out and you're building traction, is to be consistent and post Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you're just going to post every Wednesday, post every Wednesday, but maintain that consistency. Find something that you can maintain. Another thing, you can change it. You don't want to change it every single week. You don't want to change it even every single month, but you can, and you are allowed to change it. So if you start off for 3 months posting daily, and then at the end of 3 months, you're like, I'm going to pull it back to 3 times a week, that is allowed. You can do that. You do not need to dig yourself into a hole posting daily just to get to burnout. But just know that you want to be as consistent as possible. And the best part to do and best way to do that is to put in boundaries and determine, what days are you creating content on? What times are you doing your conversations? And understand what that consistency looks like for you. Okay? So if you want to continue this conversation, I would love to do that. Head over to Instagram, add me at Tess_Wicks, send me a DM, and let's chat it out. Let's talk about the 3 C's of online marketing, because this is the key. And like I said, I know it sounds simple, and that's because it is. It does not have to be hard. And you can decide how difficult you make it. And that's why I say find that one platform, find that one kind of way of creating content, that one ideal client, and go hard there. And just remember the content, the conversations, and the consistency. It's as simple as that. Okay? So go out there and crush it. And don't forget, the Wealthy Coach Blueprint opens up for enrollment in just about a month's time, but you can be the first to know when enrollment officially opens by jumping on the waitlist. Head to wanderwealthy.com/apply to do just that. Scroll all the way to the bottom. If you want to stop and read along the way, go for it, but scroll all the way to the bottom. Click the button, get your name and your email address on the waitlist, and we will make sure that you are the first to know when you can book a strategy session with me to talk about what your business looks like and what those next steps are for you, and if the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is the right mentorship program for you to work alongside me and my team to build your amazing, booked out, thriving, sustainable, scalable money coaching business. So wanderwealthy.com/apply. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk all about the 3 C's of online marketing. If you want to check out the show notes, head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 190. And I will see you next time. Until then, I hope you wander wealthy.